Warning, this video contains content that some viewers might find disturbing.
Welcome back to Monsters of the Motherland. In the last video, we started to dive into the 5 different types of the most common and well-known monster of the Motherland, the Aswang. So far, we've covered vampires, viscera suckers, and witches. Before we cover the final 2, a reminder to like and subscribe and comment. What other Mumu would you want to see in future videos? I'm interested to hear from you. Now, on with the show.
Number 4. Ghouls.
A lot of what we've already talked about with the previous monsters is applicable to the ghouls. What separates them is their lack of humanity. They may look humanoid, but don't necessarily have human traits. They're creatures or evil spirits that inhabit large trees near cemeteries. And they don't attack you while you're lying in your bed. They attack while you're lying in your grave. Visitors of the Philippines often express surprise at the merriment and raucous behavior of Filipinos at Larao. What is Larao? Larao is kind of like an unconventional funeral for the ancient Visayans, surviving from the days when fierce ghouls were believed to steal corpses. They got drunk and played drinking games, sang hilarious songs, and gambled. Anything to distract them from their sad memories. Custom would last for 3 consecutive days as they watched over their fallen associate, because it was said that the night after a person had been buried, ghouls would dig up the body with their claws, drink all the blood, and eat all the flesh from their bones. The loud noises and constantly tended fire kept the ghouls at a distance while they lingered around the corpse, waiting for their feast.
One thing I did when my uncle died, I chipped a piece of wood from the coffin and tied it to a long string, like a fly to a fish hook. I lowered the dangling line between the slats of the floor as I stood in the room where the dead body lay. As a fish catches at the bait, so the ghoul seized my bait of wood, and for about 2 minutes I could feel him pulling at it from under the floorboards. Then, I drew up the string without the wood. The ghoul remained under the house, smelling my uncle's scent through the chip from his coffin.
We've all heard of vampire bats, right? Well, did you know that the animal was named after the fictional character and not the other way around? In the Philippines, the Aswang are known to take on the demonic appearances of other animals like goats, buzzards, moths, pigs, or, most famously, man's best friend.
Number 5. Weredogs.
The monsters we've previously portrayed parallel a lot of the traditional traits that constitute an Aswang, but the truest mainstream comparison for the Aswang is the werewolf. In Europe, werewolves are human beings said to become wolf-like animals at night and have a similar taste for human flesh as the Aswang. On the contrary, in the Philippines, they are monsters disguised as humans that live in human communities by day and prowl about at night in the form of fierce, medium-sized beasts, other than wolves themselves, because wolves can't be found anywhere in the Philippines. Sure, there are a lot of dogs, but wolves are not native to the motherland.
In regions where there are no wolves, prevailing fiercest animal takes its place. Thus, we find the were-tiger in India, Borneo, and Eastern Asia.
Great, so the Philippines is safe. No wolves and tigers means no werewolves or were-tigers. It's an absolute win. And I'm sure we're doing everything in our power to keep it that way. A reporter from Batangas stated that the walking Aswang can appear in any form, but only as a male. However, the were-dog, known as Malacat in southern Leyte, can be either sex.
In attacking a person, she assumes a horrible and frightful sight. Her long hair spreads all over her face. Her eyes turn fiery. Her saliva flows from out of her mouth like long strings, and her nails grow long and sharp. As the fight begins, her hair crawls into the person's nose, ears, mouth, and eyes, depriving them of their breath, voice, and sight. She grips the victim firmly on the arms and legs, and with her sharp claws, she digs into the victim's skin until they bleed. If she has a weapon with her, she avoids the struggle entirely and feasts on the victim's flesh, the kill being an afterthought.
Same report also stated that the Aswang sleeps by day and prowls by night, for if they don't go out at night, they become sick. Seniors refrain from walking alone at night in fear of cannibal spirits that eat solitary persons. One evening, an Apaya woman once went to gather vegetables and encountered a big black dog with its tongue out as if it were thirsty. She kindly called to it, but the animal suddenly transformed into a dark, strange-looking man who smelled so disagreeable that she vomited violently.
Before the aswang leaves his home in the evening, he applies a secret ill-smelling oil to his body that allows him to walk as swift as the wind, weaving in and out of housetops with the greatest of ease. But other informants say he automatically becomes thus swift-moving and self-transforming when darkness comes on.
Now there's a lengthy, in some instances, ridiculous list of various tools and tactics used to counter the harm that the were-dog inflicts.
The list is kind of long, so I don't know if I really have to go through it. Just going to post it here. Feel free to screenshot. The TLDR is say your prayers, and I guess vitamin C is your best friend?
In a 2021 interview with anime feminist, Bujet Tan, co-creator and writer of Trese, the award-winning Filipino comic series, spoke about creatures from Philippine mythology, including the Aswang, and their relationship to the human world. Quote,
Living in the Philippines feels like we're living in a story set in a magic realism novel. For Pinoys, it's normal to talk about supernatural encounters. Everyone has a ghost story to tell. Everyone has a relative that supposedly saw an aswang or manananggal. It's normal to go to the market and find magical amulets and magic potions being sold, alongside bread, fish, and vegetables. It's normal to have a magical encounter or experience when you're living in the Philippines.
Trese was a huge inspiration for me when I first started writing my graphic novels. I had known about Darna, a popular Filipino comic from back in the day, but if she was Superman, then Trese is Batman. This grounded detective noir written by someone who looks like me. I'd never read anything before from a Filipino writer. And Bujet's comments really resonated with me on a personal level because I feel the same way every time I visit the Philippines. I started the show talking about how entrenched the American zeitgeist is with monster media. And it's thrilling. It's exciting. I love all this stuff. I love the horror genre. Sure, they're scary to think about, but I think there's also an interesting metaphor there for overcoming adversity, right? And for me, growing up as a second-generation Filipino American, I totally relate, having been exposed directly at such a young age to both the Eurocentric catalog of vampires, witches, and werewolves, but also having the Aswang and the Capre and the Duende and all the other Momok stories my grandparents used to tell me. Having that unique duality feels very special. And as a kid, really did make my reality that much more magical, I guess. I'm really happy to be able to share these stories with everyone in my homeland, whether you're Filipino or not, to give some context to our roots. And to be able to keep these traditions going, I think is really important. Take some ownership in these monsters. Because like Bujet said, magical encounters are normal in the Philippines. And if you believe that, then believe I'm proud to be able to call that country the Motherland. Thanks so much for hanging out. My name is Chaz, and this has been Momo, Monsters of the Motherland. It took a lot of hard work, but I had just as much fun and can't wait to create more. If you had fun or like what you learned, please do me a favor and subscribe, comment, like, share. All that stuff really helps the channel. And hopefully, the algo gods will look fondly upon us. Big shout out to Steve Wynn for helping with the music. Check out his stuff on Spotify. Links in the description for that as well. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider contributing to our Patreon. Don't forget to check out the Moment merch store. There are links in the description for that. And remember, be careful!